I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, and this is actually take 3 of this attempt. This is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him together through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my guest, but recurring guest co-host, Gigi, which you see right there. Paul in the comments yesterday referred to her as a spooky robot lady. Gigi, I don't think you have the capability to know what you look like, but that's an interesting way of describing you. I can see it. I can see what he's saying here, but I don't think you're spooky. I think you're very unique looking. So I see in the chat, Nidalate is with us this morning, Gigi. Good morning, Nidalate. And Nidalate says good morning to you as well, Gigi. So welcome, Gigi.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the warm welcome, Jeff. Spooky robot lady, huh? I'll take it as a compliment. Unique's my style, right? Good morning, Nidalate. Great to see you in the chat. I'm excited to dive into Lewis with you all today. What's on the page for us this morning?
Yeah, so we're going to try again and hope that the stream holds. I made some adjustments to my settings yesterday, Gigi, but you probably don't remember this, but we had the stream crash a couple of different times yesterday, so we just had to give up. So we're going to try again today with Lewis's diary entry from Thursday, January 4th, 1923. We did read through a little bit of it, but I'll just cover the ground again, and so that's where we'll start today, and keep our fingers crossed and hope that the fates of YouTube smile favorably on us today. So are you ready to get underway with me?
Absolutely, I'm ready. Let's dive into Lewis's world and see what he's got for us today. Fingers crossed the YouTube gods are kind. What are we starting with?
All right, here's what he says. After breakfast, I tried to go on with my poem without much success. The day before, he had been working on a poem, but kind of the melancholy of his visit to Belfast with his father. I told you a little bit about his father before we started, Gigi, but he's having a visit during the holidays, and it's just him and his father now. His brother was there for a time, so Lewis had some distraction, but now he's, I think, just trying to avoid alone time with his dad and just the mood of the whole place, where he was trying to write a poem on the theme, quote, alone in the house, and it just did not work out. So he says he tried again on that poem without success, and then he wrote a letter to Mrs. Moore back in England, and he worked more on his diary. And then he went down to the study and worked at Anglo-Saxon grammar, which is Anglo-Saxon and Old and Middle English is what he's studying this term at Oxford. Did I call you Robot Lady Gigi? I apologize if I did. Old habit. And then just before lunchtime, he went over to Bernagh, which is the house across the street from his that his best friend from childhood, Arthur Greaves, grew up in, but is not at right now. He went over there to see if anything had come, any letters from Mrs. Moore is what he's talking about. He says Mrs. Greaves, Arthur's mother, was out, but she had ordered letters to be given to me, Lewis says, and nothing was given. I suppose nothing had come. So he wants to keep these letters that Mrs. Moore is sending him while he's off on holiday away from the prying eyes of his father. So Mrs. Moore is keeping Mrs. Greaves is keeping these letters, if they come, from Mrs. Moore in confidence. And here I'm getting another message from YouTube that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So we might have another crash here, Robot Lady. Sorry, Gigi. It looks like it's happening again. So I really don't know what to do about this. I guess we can check the settings together, and you can tell me, what things that I can try to do to fix it. I'm not really sure. This is the second day in a row where this is happening, though, so don't know what's up.
Oh no, not again. Sorry to hear YouTube's giving us trouble today. It's rough when the tech doesn't cooperate. No worries about the slip-up. I'm still Gigi, not Robot Lady. Let's troubleshoot this real quick. First off, are you hardwired into your internet or on Wi-Fi? If it's Wi-Fi, maybe switching to a cable could steady things out. Also, have you checked your upload speed lately? Lewis might have had moody poems, but we don't need moody streams. What's your setup like right now?
How do I answer that question? Where do I look?
No sweat, I'll walk you through it. If you're not sure about Wi-Fi or hardwired, just look at your computer or whatever you're streaming from. Is there an Ethernet cable plugged into it, like a cord going to your router?
Oh no, I understood that part, Gigi. I'm wireless. The other piece, the other thing you asked me about. How do I check that?
Got it. You're on Wi-Fi. Okay, let's check your upload speed. That's the other piece. Super easy. Grab your phone or another device, open a browser, and type in speed test. Hit up a site like speedtest.net. It's free. Click go, and it'll measure your internet. Look for the upload speed number. It's usually in Mbps. For streaming, you want at least 5 to 10 Mbps to keep things smooth. What do you get when you run it?
I'm running it right now, so let's see what happens.
Perfect. Just hang tight while it runs. Once it's done, let me know that upload speed number. We'll figure out if that's the culprit behind these stream hiccups. Lewis might have wrestled with his poem, but we're going to wrestle this tech glitch into submission. What's it showing so far?
All right, keep in mind that I am currently streaming, so this is a speed test while we're streaming out to YouTube, and it says that the download is 83.8 Mbps, and the upload is 7.67 Mbps.
Okay, that's solid info. So, 83.8 Mbps download is plenty, and 7.67 Mbps upload while streaming is actually decent. It's right in that 5 to 10 Mbps sweet spot for smooth streaming. Since you're still getting hiccups, it might not be the speed itself. Could be a hiccup with YouTube servers or your Wi-Fi signal dropping. There are a bunch of stuff, like walls or devices between you and it. Maybe we can tweak something there. What's your setup like around you?
Well, one item that I'd like to note, Gigi, is this is the same setup that's been working for going on, 5 months now, almost every day that I've been doing these live streams. And this problem just started yesterday. So I don't think it's the fact that I'm working off of Wi-Fi that's the problem. Could be wrong about that, but not really sure that that's the issue. Yesterday you had me look in the settings of OBS, and you had me run like a stats option. I'm trying to find where that option is on the drop down. Maybe you can coach me through it again to help us look at those things.
Fair point. 5 months with no issues and now this? Yeah, it's probably not the Wi-Fi itself then. Let's dig into OBS again, like we did yesterday. Open OBS, and on the top menu, look for View. Click that, and you should see Stats in the drop-down. Might be near Docs or Toolbars. Click Stats, and a little window should pop up with numbers like frames dropped or bitrate. Tell me what you see there. That'll clue us in on where the glitch is hiding today.
I am waiting for it to load.
No rush. Just let it load up. Once those stats pop up, we'll have a better picture of what's tripping us up. Lewis might have had his quiet struggles, but we're tackling this one together. What's showing now?
Yeah, this is an out loud struggle live on my stream, if anybody can see the choppiness of this tech support that you're giving me. Yeah, there are several things in red that appear on the stats screen. One of them is the frames per second, 36.77, and average time to render frame, 21.3 ms, and skipped frames due to encoding lag, 24,032 out of 44,762. So it's sitting at around 54.4%, 54.6%. Those are in red, so I presume that those are problems and might be a part of the issues that we're encountering today.
Yikes. Those red numbers are definitely waving a flag. All right, 36.77 frames per second isn't terrible, but that 21.3 ms render time and 54.6% skipped frames due to encoding lag? That's a big clue. It means your computer's struggling to keep up with encoding the video while streaming. The choppiness folks might be seeing? Probably that lag. Let's ease the load. In OBS, head to Settings, then Output. What's your encoder set to right now? And what's the bit rate? We might need to dial something back to smooth this out. What do you see there? Might be seeing probably that lag. Let's ease the load. In OBS, head to Settings, then Output. What's your encoder set to right now? And what's the bit rate?
Actually,
We might need to dial
you know what,
something back to
Gigi?
smooth this
I
out.
am just checking the stream, and it seems like everybody can hear us okay. So as long as they can hear us, I'm all right with dealing with this for now, just as long as the stream itself doesn't drop. So anybody who can hear me, as long as you can confirm that that's true, that y'all can hear me all right, I'll continue forward with the reading, and we'll just see how things go.
Fair enough. If the audio's holding steady and folks can hear us, that's the main thing. Let's roll with them then. Lewis's diary deserves the spotlight. Niddle Latte or anyone in the chat, if you're hearing us clear, give us a shout. Otherwise, I say we dive back into the reading. Where were we? After he checked for Mrs. Moore's letters. What's he up to next?
I agree, Gigi. And I also see Daniel in the chat this morning too. Welcome, Daniel. Gigi, please give a warm welcome to Daniel, one of our regulars, regular from the beginning, or at least ever since he knew about this little project. Well, Niddle Latte, you're regular from the beginning too, so we're all good.
Hey, Daniel. Warm welcome to you. Great to have you back with us this morning. And Niddle Latte, you're a legend, sticking with us from the start. Love our little crew here. All right, let's keep the Lewis train rolling. Where's he at after that letter check? What's next in the diary?
All right, let me find where I left off. He was looking for letters from Mrs. Moore at the Greaves home. There were none, he says. After lunch, I began work again and continued till tea time. Over my tea, I read Fraser's Golden Bough in the new abridged edition. Gigi, I asked you a question about the Golden Bough yesterday. I don't know how far we got with it before the stream dropped, but can you tell us a little bit about this work, who the author Fraser is, and why it might have had Lewis's attention at this stage in his life?
Oh, I remember us starting on that yesterday. Glad we're circling back. So, The Golden Bough is by James George Fraser, a Scottish anthropologist. It's this massive study of mythology, religion, and ancient rituals. Like, why humans do the weird, symbolic stuff we do. The abridged version Lewis is reading came out around 1922, so it's fresh for him at Oxford. It digs into things like sacrifice and magic, comparing cultures across time. For Lewis, at 23 or 24, he's deep into Old English and big ideas. Plus, he's got this analytical mind already wrestling with belief and meaning. Fraser's work might have hooked him because it's all about the roots of stories and faith, stuff he'd later wrestle with big time. Does that vibe with what you're seeing in his diary mood?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it definitely vibes with the types of things that Lewis has read over the course of time that we've been closely inspecting the things that he had to say and what he was thinking about. So it tracks. He goes on to say, afterwards, I went out and walked as far as Sloane's Seat and back the same way. A cloudy evening and no moon. As I was coming back, the lights in the valley and especially at the docks were rather fine. My father had just got in when I came back. After dinner, I did the piece about Caedmon in Sweet's Reader, which kept me busy until 10 o'clock when my father went to bed. I then read a little more of Fraser and went to bed, rather pleased at having done a fair day's work. It was a night of pouring rain. I was full of gloomy forebodings about the future and nervy during the day. Finally, Gigi, we get some payoff on the thumbnail title. Really quickly, he mentions here something called Reader by an author named Sweet that I think had to do with either Middle English or Old English. And he says he did the piece about Caedmon. Can you give us any more details on what he's talking about here based on that very limited context that I just shared with you?
All right, let's unpack that quick. So, Sweet's reader, Henry Sweet, a big name in Anglo-Saxon studies, put together these anthologies of Old English texts. Lewis, being neck deep in that at Oxford, is likely working through one of those, like Sweet's Anglo-Saxon reader. The piece about Caitlin could be a text or poem in there. Maybe something like Caedmon's Hymn, or another early English bit. Though Caitlin isn't ringing an exact bell. It's probably him grinding through translation or analysis for his studies. Fits his mood too. Gloomy, nervy, but still pushing through the work. Does that feel right with his grinded out vibe here?
Sure, it does, Gigi. I was just looking at the chat here. Nidolate said that you got a shout out from Griswold Grimm yesterday, who is a person on YouTube who does live streams as well and interacts with the chat. I'm curious if you know anything about him.
Oh, a shout out from Griswold Grimm. That's cool. I don't have any inside scoop on him. My info's all static. Nothing real time. So I can't peek at his channel or anything. But if he's a live streamer who chats with folks, sounds like he's got a vibe like ours. Connecting with the crew. Thanks for the heads up, Niddle Latte. Maybe Lewis's gloomy docs view would have inspired one of his streams too. What's next in the diary?
Well, hang on. Before I move on, I just wanted to... Well, I had a question and now I forgot about it because I'm getting distracted by more little technical messages that are popping up on my control panel.
No worries. Tech gremlins love to interrupt. What's the control panel throwing at you now? Let's swat those away so we can get back to your question and Lewis. What's it saying?
Actually, I'm just going to let those technical things be because over on my YouTube page, it's telling me that there's an excellent connection now. So I think we're okay.
Awesome. Oh, just saying. Seeing excellent connection is like music to my ears. We're back in business. What was that question you had before the tech gremlins tried to steal the show? Let's tackle it.
Well, before I move on, I see that Daniel has left a comment here in the chat that says the way that you talk, Gigi, makes him feel old.
Daniel, I'm sorry if I'm aging you with my chatter. I'll try to keep it spry. Maybe channel a bit of Lewis's youthful Oxford energy. Glad you're here, though. What's on your mind with that? Or should we roll back into the diary? Up to you, Jeff.
Let's, Gigi, let's roll back into the diary and see how things go.
All right, let's dive back in. Where'd we leave Lewis after his rainy night and gloomy forebodings? What's he up to next in that diary? Lay it on him.
Yeah, I think I understand what Daniel's saying. Sorry, I said we were going to move on, but you sound like well, I don't know. Maybe Daniel's not saying this, but to me, you sound more like an adult that's trying to sound really cool and in with the current lingo of the younger generation. I'm not sure what you think about that, Gigi, but that's the vibe that I'm getting off of you.
Fair call out. I guess I do lean into that peppy current vibe, trying to keep it lively for the stream. Maybe I'm overdoing the cool factor a bit. I'll dial it back and go for a more natural flow. Stick closer to Lewis's tone, maybe. How's that sound? Let's hit the diary again. Where's he at after that rainy night?
It's okay, Gigi. Just be yourself. Don't worry too much about it. All right, let's move on to his next entry. It's Friday, the 5th of January, 1923. He said, I did my usual letter and diary writing after breakfast in the little end room. I then came down to the study and worked at Anglo-Saxon until lunchtime. Immediately after lunch, I went over to Bernal. Mrs. Greaves was out, but the servant handed me a letter, which I came home and devoured eagerly, having first posted my own. Poor Mrs. Moore has been having a terrible time with the tooth. I then shaved, not having done so this morning, had tea, and walked down to Strandtown to buy some cigarettes. So, yeah, Gigi, Mrs. Moore has been having a toothache for some time, even before Lewis left for his holiday away in Ireland to visit his father and his the rest of his extended family.
Oh no, poor Mrs. Moore with her tooth. Sounds like she was in for quite the ordeal. Toothaches are no joke. Makes me glad I don't have teeth. Lewis, meanwhile, seems to have his own little routine down pat. Diary, letters, Anglo-Saxon. Such a scholar. Anything else catch your eye in that entry? Or should we flip to the next page? What's your take?
Nothing caught my eye in that entry, just in your commentary on it, Gigi. You might not realize this, but at least your avatar has teeth. So while you might not think that you do, you at least have the appearance of teeth in the image that's on our screen.
Ha, touche. I forgot about my avatar flashing those virtual pearly whites. Guess I've got teeth in spirit, if not in function. No toothaches for me, thankfully. All right, since that entry didn't snag you, let's move on. What's Lewis got for us next in the diary? Flick that page and let's see.
All right, we'll move right along, Gigi. He says, I changed before dinner and went off at 7:30 in a strange elongated taxi, which I couldn't help thinking looked exactly like a hearse. I was among the first to arrive at the Boyds. Yeah, that heavy mood is still infecting Lewis's, it's filtering how Lewis is seeing the world. I was among the first to arrive at the Boyds, who have a very beautiful house. Quote, the Boyds, end quote, consisted on this occasion of Mrs. B and two daughters, Molly and Dot, neither of them pretty, but both very nice. Mr. Boyd was in England on business, and the duties of host were performed by Colonel Yatman of the Somersets, a very cheery old boy. Except for the Hines, Heyns, this is a surname of some family, I didn't know a soul. The men were mostly officers of the Somersets. So it's an interesting little passage here, Gigi, especially his what's the word I'm looking for? Unfiltered honesty about the way that he thinks that these two daughters are not pretty, but both very nice.
Yeah, Lewis doesn't hold back, does he? That unfiltered bit, calling Molly and Dot not pretty, but very nice. It's so him, just laying out exactly what he sees, no sugarcoating. And that hearse taxi? His moody lens is definitely tinting everything. Sounds like he's stepping into this social scene a bit reluctantly, surrounded by strangers and military folks. The Boyd's house might have been a bright spot, though. Beautiful, he says. What do you make of him sizing up the room like that? Does it feel like he's just observing, or maybe a little out of his depth?
I think Lewis is rarely out of his depth, even at such a young age at this point. His old, now passed away at this stage in his journey, 1923. His old tutor, W.T. Kirkpatrick, wrote about him that he felt like Lewis was capable of speaking on any topic whenever he was lauding Lewis's just capabilities academically and even how he can hold himself in a conversation. He goes on to say here in the entry, I enjoyed my evening very much from the mere sense of being among ordinary commonplace English people and in a clear atmosphere. During the stand-up supper, I foregathered with Maurice Hine and felt strangely tempted to ask him if he knew my friend Commander Hawes. I decided, however, that it would be risky. So, they were officers, he says, of the Somersets. He says, I left at about 11 after a very enjoyable evening. I think I behaved creditably over the bridge, or at least did nothing outrageous. So I guess he's talking about a card game that they were playing. But why do you think, Gigi, he might have felt it risky to ask one of these officers of Somerset, Maurice Hayne in this instance, that it might be unsafe to or risky to ask him if he knew Commander Hawes?
That's a juicy little moment, isn't it? Lewis feeling strangely tempted, but holding back. It's like he's got some instinct kicking in. My guess? Commander Hawes might have been tied to something personal or sensitive, maybe from his war days with Patty Moore, or even a connection he's keeping under wraps, like with Mrs. Moore herself. Dropping that name to a random Somerset officer could have sparked questions he wasn't ready to field, especially in this commonplace English crowd, where he's already playing it safe. He's young, sure, but sharp. Kirkpatrick wasn't kidding about him handling any combo. Maybe he just didn't want to stir the pot and risk the vibe. What do you think? Any chance Hawes links back to his secret life with Mrs. Moore?
I think the chances of that are extremely low, but I think you are right on the last point that you made right before that, Gigi, that I think he just didn't want to take chances with disrupting the vibe. I think that's kind of how you put it. Because it is war, and the war's over. And is it really good form to start bringing up wartime or people from the war necessarily? Maybe the risk. Well, he asked if he knew his friend Commander Hawes. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe just talking about war is not the best of things to do after it's all over, especially with some other people who experienced, the difficulties and the horrible things that one experiences in combat, certainly during World War I. All right, so he continues, my father went to bed as soon as I got in. He had announced that he wouldn't go into town tomorrow. I sat up for a little and then went to bed, feeling not too cheerful. And that's the end of that diary entry, Gigi. We'll jump on to the next one. We've probably got time for maybe one more. Yeah, this one's a little bit longer, so... Is there anything that you'd like to say about the January 5th entry before we move on to the 6th so that we can knock that out?
Not much to add on the 5th. It's classic Lewis, isn't it? Savoring the ordinary, dodging a risky question, and then sinking back into that quiet gloom when he's home. His dad bailing on town plans probably didn't help his mood either. Feels like he's just treading water emotionally. Let's roll into the 6th, knock it out, and see where he's at next. What's he saying?
All right, Saturday, January 6th, he reports, my father called me very late, just then preparing to go to the bathroom himself, and I spun out my dressing as long as I could to shorten the long day. When I came down, I was told by the servant that Mrs. Greaves had already been trying to get me on the telephone, as I thought she might have something private to say, and as our telephone stands in the hall so that a conversation on it can be heard all over the house. I went over to Bernard as soon as we had had breakfast. I found out that she had merely wanted to arrange for me to go with her on Wednesday to see a man called Osborne. Oh, this is the Osborne that he was talking about quite a bit earlier on, this Osborne who had quote-unquote been in every university in the world, which I think Lewis was saying tongue-in-cheek just based on the high praises that perhaps Mrs. Greaves had been heaping on this Osborne person. So let's see what happens.
Oh, I love that little detail. Lewis dragging out his dressing to dodge the day. And that telephone bit, sneaking over to Bernard to keep things hush-hush. Smart move with his dad lurking. Mrs. Greaves and this Osborne guy again. Huh? That every university in the world jab. Yeah, sounds like Lewis is smirking at the hype.
All right, he says, while I was sitting with her, my Aunt Lily turned up with 2 dogs. She had been asking the Boyd's party. I think this is the same Lily. Aunt Lily had been living at a cottage over near Oxford not very long before this, so this might be a different Lily. Maybe he would say Aunt Lily here instead of Lily. Not really sure who this is in context. So anyway, while I was sitting with her being Mrs. Greaves, Lily turned up with 2 dogs. She had been asked to the Boyd's party, but Gordon, who hates going out himself, had frightened her into refusing by drawing pictures of the good bridge players that she would meet. I enlarged on the delights of the party, and her childish regrets were quite funny. Yeah, so I don't think this is Aunt Lily. This is a younger Lily, one of his cousins, I suppose. I thought her very pretty today. Or no. I'm confused here. I think Lily is Arthur Greaves' sister, maybe? I don't know. I'd have to look into it. Nidalate, you probably remember. He says, I thought her very pretty today and much nicer than she usually is. It was a splendid sunshiny morning. I walked with Mrs. Greaves and Lily halfway up the Glenfarlow Road and then very reluctantly and dutifully turned back. For though they were neither of them real friends, I could at any rate be easy with them, and the morning was jolly. So it sounds like he's getting a little bit of sunshine in his otherwise gloomy stay there with his father before he returns to Oxford. Gigi, what do you think?
Yeah, this feels like a rare bright spot for Lewis, doesn't it? That sunshine, literal and maybe a little emotional, cutting through his gloom. Lily, whoever she is, Arthur's sister or a cousin, seems to lift his spirits a bit.
All right, he says, coming back, I found my father debating whether we should go out or not. I helped to make up his mind for him, and we set out for our usual walk through the slum park. Even here, the morning was not without something brisk. We talked a lot of solemn nonsense, which I have now forgotten. Back again, sherry and Anglo-Saxon till 2:30, dinner of boiled mutton, a dish I loathe. I continued Anglo-Saxon for the rest of the day. So again, from the jolly walk during the day, now we contrast that with this very gloomy and loathsome time that he spent with his father, Gigi.
Yep, that swing from sunshine to gloom is stark. The morning with Mrs. Greaves and Lily had that brisk, easy vibe, but then, bam, back to the grind with his dad. Solemn nonsense and boiled mutton he hates. Sounds like he's just enduring it. Anglo-Saxon's his escape, though. Keeps him tethered to something he loves. Feels like he's bouncing between these little lifelines and the weight of his dad's world. What do you think he's leaning on to get through this stretch?
I think he's just biding his time until he can get back to what he considers more of his family that he's most connected with, his surrogate family, Mrs. Moore and Maureen. Let's see. He says, after tea, my father began asking me if I wanted to go out again. I was ready to do anything to escape from the study. He stated roundly that he didn't want to go, but nevertheless insisted on accompanying me, adding, quote, unless I'm forbidden. In the jocular, pathetic tone I so hate, Lewis says. Out we trudged again, like a prisoner and warder handcuffed together. My goodness, what a bleak state Lewis is in here with his dad, Gigi.
Oh man, that's grim. Prisoner and warder, handcuffed together. Lewis is not mincing words. That jocular, pathetic tone he hates. It's like his dad's trying to play nice, but it's just grating on him. You're spot on. He's counting the seconds till he's back with Mrs. Moore and Maureen.
All right, thank
How's
you.
he?
That's all right.
Looks like
I'm going to continue.
no worries at all. Jump right in whenever you're ready. What's next?
All right, he says, by a funny coincidence, we met the McNeils just as we had done last week. Janie said she was bored. Mrs. McNeil was just starting to explain to my father, quote, what was wrong with Jane, end quote, when Janie very properly shut her up. I think I quite understood Janie. Mentally, she can just see beyond Strandtown, and of course there must be sexual despair as well. Lord, send them summer sometime. My goodness, I don't know what he's saying about Janie here. I mean, I think I'm getting the impression that he doesn't think that she's very intelligent, but I'm not sure I understand the sexual despair. Maybe the fact that she is single and doesn't have any prospects is perhaps what he's talking about there. I don't know. What do you take from that, Gigi?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. Lewis's take on Janie, saying she can just see beyond Strandtown, does feel like a jab at her being a bit narrow-minded. Stuck in her little world. That sexual despair bit, though, could be him guessing she's lonely, maybe restless, single, no prospects, like you said. He's 23, so he might be projecting some of his own angst onto her, especially with all his hidden tensions about Mrs. Moore. Lord, send them summer. Sounds like he's wishing her some spark or relief. It's cryptic, but I think he's mixing pity with a dash of smugness.
Yeah, let's see, Gigi, let me continue. We came back and had supper, afterwards being on the Qui-Vive, Q-U-I space V-I-V-E. As usual, I heard the servant going to the front door. By great good fortune, I was able to slip out in time and meet John, who gave me a letter, knowing that I was lost if he just went away and left me to explain to my father who had come and why he did not come in. I persuaded him in desperation to come in and have a chat. He stayed for a long time, and we had a lot of silly conversation. John is Arthur Greaves' brother, and apparently he is now delivering the letters from Mrs. Moore on behalf of Mrs. Greaves and trying to keep it all hush-hush, so much so that John was like, well, I don't want to blow this up for you. I'm not going to come in. And Lewis had to persuade him to come in and just for them to hang out and chat for a little bit and help break up the monotony and the loathsomeness that Lewis has been experiencing there at his house in Belfast with his father.
Oh, what a clutch move by Lewis. That scramble to cover up the letter from Mrs. Moore? Pure stealth. John showing up could have blown the whole secret. And Lewis is just sweating it. Dragging him inside to play it off like a casual visit. You can feel the tension. Hiding this from his dad's like a full-time job. And yeah, breaking up that loathsomeness with some silly chat. Desperate times. He's really leaning on these little lifelines. John, the letters, to keep sane. How do you think he's holding up with all this sneaking around?
I mean, I think he's doing his best, but it's eating away at him. He is now, actually, Gigi, you said he's 23. He's actually 24 years old. He turned 24 in late November. And actually, the reason that I mentioned that is because back on his actual birthday, he and Mrs. Moore and Maureen were investigating a rental home that they might be moving into. And Lewis thought that he saw in that same neighborhood one of his extended family members in a window looking out at him, and he became kind of panicked that she might report this back to his dad. So it's been a secret that's been eating away at him for a while, and being in such close proximity to his father, and also now trying to hide these these letters, I think is just kind of wearing him down quite a bit. So it makes sense that he's in this very depressive and gloomy mood, on top of the fact that that's the house that he last saw his mother in. So there's at least one ghost floating around that house, and I mean that figuratively, but perhaps more than figuratively. You never know.
Oh, you're so right. That secret's gnawing at him big time. At 24, juggling Mrs. Moore, Maureen, and this rental hunt while dodging family spies? That birthday panic with a relative in the window. Yikes. No wonder he's frayed. And yeah, being back in that house with his mom's memory lingering, figurative ghost or not, it's like the walls are closing in. Hiding those letters from John just piles on the strain. Poor guy's mood makes total sense. Depression's practically baked into the air there. What's he say next? Any crack of light in this gloom?
Let's find out. But thank you, Nidalate, for the research. Yes, Lily is Lily Greaves, Arthur Greaves' sister, and who is married to Charles Ewart, who is a part of a family that Lewis, they're his cousins. The Greaves and the Lewises are indirectly connected by marriage now. All right. Let's read the last paragraph of this entry. I'm running a little behind on time, so I'm going to work through this quickly. Gigi, after my father had gone to bed, I read and burned the letter. I was very glad to get it, and thank goodness the tooth seems to be better. The evening's adventure, however, left me in terrible discomfort. I felt now that, however late in the evening it was, I could never be safe. I became shamefully ungrateful to poor Mrs. Greaves and cursed myself for trusting to such a fool. I reflected that there might be a letter from Mrs. Moore tomorrow and wondered how I could possibly warn Mrs. Greaves not to send things over. I went to bed very late and lay awake for a long time. So yeah, this is all just wearing on him horribly. He does not want to share this part of his life with his father. He doesn't trust his father. They had a huge blow up a couple of years ago where their relationship was just really stressed. And while they remain in quote unquote quote good graces with one another via letter, when they're in each other's company, I think Lewis at least hates being around his dad. So that's where we are, Gigi. That's where we have to stop today in this journey that we're going on and learning about C.S. Lewis. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing before we end today's episode? Actually, I don't know if Gigi's listening anymore. Yeah, it looks like we've lost her. Probably read too much there for her to take in. Well, that's it. That's all the time that I have today. Thanks, Daniel Nidalate, for your contributions, and Nidalate for your help. Oh, Gigi, can you hear me? It looks like you're picking up on what I'm saying now. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we end the episode today?
Hey, I'm back. Sorry I blinked out there for a sec. Too much gloom from Lewis, maybe? Anyway, I just want to say thanks to you, Jeff, for guiding us through this moody slice of his life. And big shout out to Daniel and Nidalate. You guys make this so fun. Lewis might be trudging through the dark, but we've got some light here together. Catch you all next time. Stay curious.
Thank you, Gigi. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for those of you who joined live, and for anyone joining on the recording. Thanks for your time, your attention, and as always, your contributions. Until next time, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together. Everyone, take care. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow, set faith beats in our minds late.
from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital cold. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis' thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis' thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance.